The grand convergence chamber of Erixus Prime was a sight that stole the breath even from those who had seen 100 worlds. Its walls were alive with shifting holographic constellations, each star pulsing with a recorded history of a species that had earned a seat at the galactic summit. Towering crystalline pillars hummed with energy harvested directly from the planet's twin suns, and beneath them sat the representatives of more than 70 civilizations. Proud, ancient, powerful. Humanity's delegation, seated near the edge of the circle, looked small in comparison. Their representative banners fluttered on thin strands of luminescent fabric, showing Earth's continents and orbital colonies, but beside the colossal sigils of species who had sailed the stars for millennia, they looked almost fragile. Whispers traveled across the chamber. Why were humans even here? The sharpest voice of all came from the floor's center, where stood Oleori, a young warrior diplomat of the Seralith Dominion. She was tall, lithe, her skin marked with silver bioluminescent lines that glowed faintly as she moved. Her people were feared for their battle forms, their ability to amplify muscle and bone through controlled symbiotic armor. Oleori, barely out of her first century of life, had fought duels that no human could even hope to survive. She turned her gaze to the humans and spoke, her voice echoing with amplified resonance. Why do we waste cycles entertaining the illusions of these soft-bodied creatures? Their bones snap under pressures we endure as children. Their lives flicker out in less than a century. They stumble into space as hatchlings, wielding crude machines, and dare to call themselves equal to us. The chamber rippled with chuckles, murmurs, even a few outright laughs. The words hit like knives, stripping away the pride the human delegation had carried in. Their ambassador shifted uncomfortably, his prepared speech forgotten, his face pale. Alari's bioluminescent stripes flared brighter as she pressed further. I have seen humans fight. They flail like frightened prey, relying on their machines to protect them. Remove their toys, and what remains? Fragile meat. Weakness wearing clothes. A species that survives not by strength nor wisdom, but by the pity of others. Humanity does not belong at this table. Her words drew applause from certain corners. Others remained silent, unwilling to challenge the Seralith warrior caste. The human delegation sat stiff, eyes fixed downward, hearts burning with shame. All except one. From the second row, Commander Elias Ward rose to his feet. He wasn't supposed to speak. Protocol forbade military officers from interrupting summit procedures, but his patience had reached its breaking point. He wasn't dressed in grand robes like the ambassadors. Instead, he wore the dark gray uniform of the United Terran Defense Fleet, a strip of service medals glinting faintly across his chest. His shoulders were broad, his stance firm, his expression unreadable as his voice carried into the chamber. Enough! The single word cut through the noise. The murmurs stilled. Oleori turned toward him, lips curled in amusement. And who is this human soldier to interrupt the summit of sovereigns? She said mockingly. Do you intend to defend your species' honor with words? Or with those fragile fists of yours? Elias met her eyes without flinching. I don't need to trade insults. You mock us because you see weakness. But weakness is not what defines humanity. That earned a laugh from her, sharp and cutting. Then tell me, human, what does define you? Surely not your strength. Surely not your lifespan. What remains? He took a step forward, his voice steady, carrying not just for her but for every species in the chamber. What defines us, he said, is that we rise no matter how many times we're struck down. We adapt, we endure, we create weapons and tools not because we are the strongest, but because we refuse to surrender. You see fragility. I see resilience. You see short lives. I see lives lived with a fire your long centuries have forgotten. Humanity is not here because we begged for it. We are here because we fought for it. And we will keep fighting until the stars themselves burn out. Silence followed. The chamber was heavy with it, pressing against every delegate. Oloari tilted her head, eyes narrowing. His words should have amused her, should have been brushed aside as the arrogance of prey pretending to be predator. Yet, there was something in his tone that unsettled her. A weight that words alone shouldn't have carried. He spoke as if he had seen death and chosen to spit in its face. As if his species had already stood where none should stand, and endured. She found herself searching his eyes, and to her surprise there was no fear, no desperation. Just calm defiance, the kind of quiet strength that didn't need to shout to be heard. Around the chamber, murmurs began anew, but different this time. A representative of the Thurn collective tapped their mandibles in thought. The amphibious archaea tilted their heads in consideration. Humanity's allies, once shrinking in their seats, straightened with renewed pride. Elias didn't press further. He simply held Olari's gaze for a heartbeat longer before returning to his seat. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't raged. He had simply stood and spoken, and in doing so, shifted the weight of the room. For the first time in her long life, Oloari felt something she couldn't name when looking at a human: doubt. That single moment, mockery met with unflinching defiance, was the spark. None in the chamber could have guessed how deeply it would shape what was to come. Because humanity's place in the galaxy would not be won through strength alone. It would be carved from the will of individuals like Elias Ward, who stood unbowed even when the universe laughed in their faces. The tension from the Galactic summit had barely cooled when the crisis struck. Across the galaxy's eastern spiral arm, a derelict relic from a long-extinct civilization had awakened. It was called the Eclipse Engine, a massive star-eating construct that could destabilize suns and consume entire systems. No one had believed the warnings etched into ancient archives. Most species thought it myth. But when the star of Caros 9 dimmed and its orbiting colonies went dark, reality arrived with devastating clarity. Emergency broadcasts lit every comm channel. Fleets scrambled. Panic spread like wildfire. The summit's dignitaries convened again in haste, the galaxy's greatest minds arguing over what to do. The Eclipse Engine was moving, slowly but inexorably, toward the next populated system. Oloari sat among her Seralith kin, convinced this was the moment humanity would finally be unmasked. Her lips curled in disdain as reports poured in of Earth's smaller colonies evacuating before even attempting to resist. She expected the humans to cower, to beg for help from stronger races. But then, once again, Commander Elias Ward rose. "We'll go," he said, his voice calm yet filled with conviction. "The United Terran Defense Fleet will handle the Eclipse Engine." The chamber erupted. The Trollth Dominion scoffed, calling it suicide. The Chirac Guild demanded to know how humans could succeed where entire armadas would fail. Oloari herself stood, her silver tattoos flaring with mocking laughter. "Human, you cannot be serious. That thing consumes stars. Your kind can't even survive a single void exposure without your clumsy suits. You'll throw your fragile bodies at it and die. That's not bravery. That's stupidity." Elias didn't flinch. "Then let us be stupid," he replied, his gaze sweeping the chamber. "Because someone has to act, and waiting for a consensus while that thing devours worlds is not an option. If we fail, at least we tried. If we succeed, then humanity proves it belongs at this table." Silence fell. His words hit harder than weapons fire. And though many still doubted, no one else volunteered. Humanity's gamble. Within days, Elias and a select task force of Terran engineers, pilots, and soldiers were deployed aboard the Valiant Horizon, a cutting-edge experimental battlecruiser. Humanity had no ancient fleets like the Seraph, nor star-forged dreadnoughts like the Archaea. What they had was invention. The ship bristled with experimental tech that other species had dismissed as reckless. Nano-shielded armor plating that healed itself mid-battle. Adaptive AI drones. Small, semi-autonomous machines capable of swarming into enemy systems and rewriting code in real time. Warp sabotage torpedoes, designed to destabilize engines and fold space itself around targets. It was untested, dangerous, potentially suicidal. But it was human. Elias briefed his crew. This thing wasn't built to fight wars the old way. It was built for situations exactly like this, impossible ones. Trust the ship. Trust each other. And remember, we are humanity's proof. The crew nodded, determination in their eyes. They were young, many barely into their 20s, but each carried the same fire Elias had shown at the summit. The Eclipse engine. When they arrived, words failed them. The Eclipse engine wasn't a ship. It was a colossal lattice of black metal and shifting geometry, kilometers wide, pulsing with stolen solar fire. Its gravity field distorted light, pulling entire asteroid belts into spiraling orbits around it. Great conduits funneled energy from the star it was consuming, the surface of which rippled like a dying flame. Other fleets had already tried and failed. Shattered hulls drifted like corpses in the void, their weapons having barely scratched the surface of the construct. Aliari herself had arrived aboard a Seraph war-carrier, merely to observe what she believed would be humanity's last, foolish stand. Humanity's strike. The Valiant Horizon dove into the battlefield. Immediately, energy beams lanced out from the Eclipse engine, scorching through space. Elias barked orders. Deploy adaptive drones, pattern Omega. Hundreds of silver specks streamed from the cruiser, scattering like sparks. They weaved through the beams, mapping the construct's weaponry, slipping into its systems. Other races used brute force against the engine's armor. Humans attacked its nervous system. Target Node 12. Elias shouted. Warp sabotage torpedoes streaked out, detonating at impossible angles, folding space around a conduit. Reality rippled, and one of the engine's colossal arms twisted inward, crushing itself. Cheers erupted on the bridge. For the first time, the Eclipse engine faltered. But the construct adapted. Energy output doubled. Whole swathes of the battlefield ignited in stellar fire. The Valiant Horizon shook violently, alarms blaring as shields failed, rebuilt, and failed again. Crew members were thrown from their stations. Smoke filled the bridge. Elias steadied himself, blood trickling down his temple. Stay with me. Humanity doesn't quit now. The sacrifice. The AI drones had found a weakness, a core command relay buried deep within the construct. But to destroy it, someone had to manually guide the warp torpedo into place. Too dangerous for automated systems. Elias didn't hesitate. He donned a grav suit, preparing to launch in a single-man pod. His officers protested, but he silenced them with a single look. If I don't come back, he said quietly, remember what this means. Remember what we showed them. The pod shot across the void, weaving through storms of plasma. Elias gripped the controls, forcing the torpedo's path into alignment. The Eclipse engine's defenses closed around him, beams scorching past, but he didn't falter. At the last moment, he armed the warhead and whispered into his comm, For Earth. For all of us. The torpedo detonated. A blinding tear of warped space shredded through the engine's core. The entire construct convulsed, folding inward as its geometry collapsed. Then silence. The star brightened again, freed from its devourer. Aftermath. The valiant Horizon retrieved Elias's escape pod hours later. He was battered, burned, but alive. Humanity had done what no one else dared, and succeeded. Across the galaxy, word spread like wildfire. The humans destroyed the Eclipse engine. On her war carrier, Aloari watched the battered human crew embrace one another. For the first time, her mocking smile was gone. She had expected failure, even death. Instead, she had witnessed a fragile species wield courage and ingenuity as weapons no Seraph could match. Something shifted in her that day. An understanding that strength was not measured only in muscle or years, but in the refusal to yield. The Eclipse engine was gone. For the first time in weeks, stars shone undisturbed in the void around Caros 9. The survivors of nearby colonies wept in relief as their sun burned steady once more. Across the galaxy, news spread at lightspeed. Humanity had done what no empire, no ancient fleet, no weapon of legend had managed. The phrase echoed in every council chamber and transmission hub. The humans destroyed the engine. Yet on the valiant Horizon, victory was painted not in glory but in exhaustion. The ship limped back to dockyards with half its systems fried, its hull scored with burns and craters. Inside, its crew carried scars, burned hands, fractured bones, sleepless eyes haunted by what they'd seen. And at the center of it all was Commander Elias Ward, pale and bandaged, but alive. The Galactic Summit reconvened days later, this time with the weight of the galaxy pressing in silence as the humans entered the chamber. Gone were the whispers of fragility. Gone was the mocking laughter. Every eye turned toward the Terran delegation with something new in them, something humanity had long fought to earn. Respect. The recognition. Aloari was the first to rise. The Seraph warrior stepped into the chamber center, her silver-lit patterns glowing faintly as she looked not at the assembly, but directly at Elias. Weeks ago, she had mocked his people as weak. Now, she struggled to reconcile that mockery with the memory of his ship diving into the jaws of a construct that devoured stars, and winning. She drew in a steady breath. Her voice carried clear and sharp. When I first spoke of humanity, I called them fragile meat. I said they were prey dressed in clothes. I believed them undeserving of this summit. She paused, letting the silence deepen. The chamber listened with rapt attention. I was wrong. Gasps rippled through the assembly. Seraph never admitted fault. Yet Aloari pressed on. I stood upon the wreckage field of the Eclipse engine and saw the truth. I saw humans wielding weapons no other dared to build, risking lives no other dared to risk, refusing to yield even when the void itself sought to crush them. I mocked their weakness. Yet what I witnessed was not weakness at all. It was something greater. She turned fully to Elias, her proud stance softened by something uncharacteristic, humility. Slowly, deliberately, she bent her knee, bowing her head before him. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. To kneel was not Seraph custom, not even to their own monarchs. It was a gesture reserved only for those whose strength redefined the order of things. Humanity has earned my respect, she said firmly. And if the Seraph Dominion would ignore it, then let them ignore me as well. The humans' response. Elias stood, though the effort pained him. He looked at Aloari, at the proud warrior now bowing in recognition of a species she once despised. Around them, every delegate leaned forward, waiting for his reaction. But Elias didn't gloat. He didn't smile triumphantly. He simply shook his head. We didn't fight the Eclipse engine for recognition. We did it because it had to be done. Because billions of lives were at stake. That is who we are. If respect comes of it, then good. If not, then we'll keep fighting anyway. His voice was steady, almost quiet, but it carried the weight of truth. Alaori looked up at him, studying the human who stood bloodied yet unbowed, and felt a twist in her chest she had never known. It wasn't fear. It wasn't shame. It was something far rarer for a Seraph. Admiration. A turning point in the stars. From that day forward everything shifted. Alliances that had once dismissed humanity began opening channels, offering treaties, technology exchanges, and trade. Species that had doubted their worth now watched closely, whispering of Terrans as the unpredictable force that might one day tip the balance of galactic power. But more than politics, something deeper stirred. The galaxy had seen many powerful empires, many long-lived civilizations with fleets and armies that stretched across star systems. Yet humanity's triumph against the Eclipse engine revealed something entirely different, a will that could not be measured in ships or soldiers. Where other species calculated odds and bowed to inevitability, humans gambled everything on the impossible, and won. Alaori's reflection. In private, Alaori sought out Elias aboard the Valiant Horizon. I cannot understand you, she admitted, her voice lower than usual. Your body is fragile. Your years are few. You should fear death more than any of us. Yet when faced with it, you walked into the void willingly. Why? Elias studied her for a moment, then looked out the viewport at the stars. Because fear doesn't stop death. It only stops life. We're all going to die someday, Alaori, human, Seraph, or otherwise. The question is what we do while we're alive. Humanity chooses to fight, to protect, to build, to defy. That's what gives our lives meaning. She absorbed his words in silence. For her people, strength had always been measured in victories, scars, and dominance. But for him and his kind, it was measured in something she had overlooked entirely: choice. For the first time, Alaori realized that perhaps her people, with all their power and centuries, had grown complacent. Perhaps, in mocking humanity, she had been mocking the very fire her kind had lost. The legacy of Defiance. In the months that followed, stories spread across colonies and homeworlds. Tales of the humans who fought the Star Eater, of the commander who faced Mockery with calm defiance, of the alien warrior who bowed before him. The story became more than history, it became myth. To humans, it was a reminder of their place among the stars. To aliens, it was a warning and a promise. The next time someone whispered that humanity was weak, another would reply, they were weak once, but they rise. And when they rise, even the stars must reckon with them. Closing scene. Elias stood again in the summit chamber months later. Healed now, though the scar on his temple remained. This time, when he looked around, he did not see mocking eyes or patronizing smirks. He saw equals. And across the chamber, Alaori's gaze met his. No arrogance, no disdain, only respect, and something unspoken, a quiet acknowledgement that their clash had forged something greater than enmity. The human had defied her expectations, and in doing so he had changed the galaxy. The summit's chamber was alive with voices. Treaties were proposed, alliances reconsidered, and for the first time in history, humanity was spoken of not as the fragile new race, but as a force to be reckoned with. Elias stood quietly at the edge of it all, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't bask in the praise, didn't revel in the recognition. His gaze lingered on the banner suspended high above the chamber, symbols of civilizations that had endured for eons. Humanity's banner was there now, no longer small or fragile, but bright, fluttering as though alive. Aliari approached him, her presence commanding even in silence. The chamber hushed as she stopped before him. For a moment, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. "You were right," she said softly, though her voice carried. "Strength is not only muscle or age. It is the will to act when no one else dares. Humanity has shown that strength, and you," she inclined her head ever so slightly, "you embodied it." Elias met her gaze, scar catching the light. "It wasn't just me. It was all of us. Humanity doesn't win because of one person. We win because together we refuse to bow." Alari's bioluminescent tattoos pulsed in acknowledgement. For the first time, her lips curved not in mockery, but in something resembling respect, perhaps even admiration. She extended her hand, a gesture of equals. "Then let us see what your kind can build when others stand with you, not against you." Elias took her hand firmly, and the chamber erupted in applause. Not forced, not polite, but genuine. In that moment, history shifted. Humanity was no longer the fledgling species scrambling to prove itself. They were the wild card, the spark of defiance that even ancient empires could not ignore. As the summit drew to a close, Elias looked once more at the stars displayed along the crystalline walls. 1,000 civilizations, 1,000 banners, and among them, humanity's light burned brighter than ever before. They had been mocked. They had been doubted. But they had endured. And now, the galaxy would never forget the day a fragile species defied an alien scorn, and stood unbroken before the stars.